Welcome back to the SENWA studio out here at Optus Stadium. It's time for our Women in Sport interview. It comes to you thanks to MEGT. Grow your business with MEGT, Australia's apprenticeship expert. Today's guest, Niamh O'Connor, the Western Force CEO. She's from Ireland. She's got a strong background in community rugby in WA, and she's worked her way up through the ranks to be the impressive CEO of our Super Rugby team, who've had a pretty solid start to the season, it must be said. Niamh, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
How has the start to the season been? You had a couple of big wins early, including a drought-breaking one in Canberra, then 2 or 3 losses. Sum it all up for us.
For me, it's about building long-term sustainability in the game and growing the game in WA. So there are some really good green shoots from the investments we've made, and it's just about backing the process and having the courage to keep going. So it's been quite good from our perspective.
So you come from Ireland, obviously, and rugby union is a very strong and passionate sport in Ireland. It's a frontier sport in Perth. You got here in 2011. Tell us what you saw in rugby union when you first arrived here.
I guess when I arrived, I was working in construction, so for me, rugby was always my social outlet. So when I came here, I joined the local rugby club and had a lot of work in looking at junior pathways and how that works, and then joined Rugby WA in 2021, and the idea was that I would take over and look after juniors and create pathways. So what we're beginning to see now are those seeds that were planted back in 21, 22, 23. So the plan is to keep investing in that space and a lot of homegrown talent.
Have we made progress that you've seen in your time here, Niamh? Do you think the progress has been strong and steady? Do you think it's been rapid? Or do you think it's been slow and we need patience?
We'll always need patience, but we're probably in Australian rugby, we're the fastest growing state, but it's in a really sustainable way. Women's here has been incredibly has experienced incredible growth. So it's about now investing across the pathways for both boys and girls coming through and developing that forward. It's just about sustainability long term.
So what sort of planks do we need to put in place here? What are the bedrock foundations of making sure you mentioned the word sustainable a couple of times during the interview already. What do we need to make sure that it continues on its current path?
Well, for me, it's been probably an investment in coaching. We find that if we develop that good coaching pathway and having genuine coaching opportunities, that's where we see a lot of the growth, and any of the clubs that are uptake in the community in coming into our environment, which is always open. We've seen a lot of growth in that community game and in the kids, and the kids now see a genuine pathway, which has been really, really positive.
Are we now seeing that reflected in public interest in the sport in Perth? The Force had a couple of really, really great wins and a couple of really dramatic and I'd imagine exciting wins at the start of the season. Then a very narrow and heartbreaking loss as well. So the theatre of the sport has been great here. Are you seeing sort of greater interest in the sport from the public?
Yeah, I have seen a huge growth in that space in the last 12 months. We've made investments in areas that mean that we're seeing we've made it more accessible. We've tried to create this wave and re-engage the Sea of Blue again, and invest in community. So this year you'll see a lot of our players staying in WA to play rather than going to East Coast to play. So that kind of part of it will help the game in the long term.
How much did it set the sport back when they took Western Force out of the Super Rugby competition? It almost felt like it was going to be very hard to resuscitate it and get it back in. And I think it's a wonderful achievement that the sport here has been able to get it back in and re-establish itself. But how much of a setback do you think that was for the code here?
Oh, I think it was a very challenging time. The impact ran deep. The impact in 2017, 2018, followed by COVID in 2020, meant that we actually experienced a huge contraction in people playing. There wasn't much in the bank of equity with rugby in Australia, so we were starting probably from negative, not even starting where we started 20 years ago. When we won the licence originally, we were probably starting from negative. So it's going to take a while to build that trust and move it forward, I think.
How is the code travelling generally? There's always this sort of, I guess, slightly shaded competition between rugby union and rugby league. There's obviously always the danger of first-choice athletes being poached from one code to the other. Is rugby union finally holding its own, do you think?
Yeah, I think the changes, which we've worked collectively, all the member unions have worked collectively with Rugby Australia in the last year to develop the strategy. We've all bought into it. We've all developed, and it's our responsibility then at a local level to start backing that up and making sure that we are aligned with what the strategy is for putting pride back in the game again, which is going to be it'll take a while, but with the Lions, British and Irish Lions coming, we've got the 2 Rugby World Cups, the men's in 27, the women's in 29. We've been lucky enough in WA to secure some of that content. So it's about really just making sure it's a steady but meaningful progress as we go through.
A question that pertains locally at the moment, there's a lot of talk about the potential for an NRL team in Perth. Are many of your supporters who are rugby league supporters but support you because of the absence of a rugby league team? Is there possibility that the establishment of a rugby league team in Perth would impact your supporter base? And as a follow-up question to that, how do you feel about all this talk about the state government putting forward a multi-million-dollar package, if you like, to try and get an NRL team based in Perth?
I guess to answer the supporter question first, we've always worked quite closely with the local NRL anyway, and really coordinated how we run games, finals, try not to play on the same day. So we've been working quite closely with NRL here anyway. I think there's probably a melting pot of people here who follow rugby. I don't think it's having any either or of the codes, because in general, WA people just love events and generally support them quite well. The second part of the question is I can understand from state government perspective, and I would support any investment into. There is a shortage of rectangular fields and stadiums here, and we really need to invest in that space. And that's probably, I would support that part of it in any investment into rectangular stadia, sports and community fields.
What do you think of the NRL's approach that WA doesn't get to have a team unless there's this tens of millions of dollars basically put in up front? It's almost like they're exacting a ransom from our state to get a team in, where you would think that they would maybe want to grow the code and make their own investment in the code here to make their code stronger.
I'm probably not across the detail of the NRL's approach, but I do support a national team on a national basis, and we'll continue to work with NRL locally to make sure we can do that.
I like the idea you're talking about supporters supporting both codes, and perhaps as a result of that, maybe getting a bigger community that's a rugby community generally that gets around the players and makes it a better environment for them to play and live in.
Yeah, correct. And WA people are firstly WA supporters, and that's probably what makes us different from everywhere else. WA people will follow a WA team, winning preferably, but that's okay.
Let's get back onto the Western Force and their fortunes this year. It's a massive game for them this weekend against Fijian Drua. Obviously, you're 2 and 3 at the moment. You're 8th on the ladder, but it's a really jam-packed ladder. Tell us how big this fixture is.
Yeah, the Western Force men's team take on Fiji Drua, and it's a double header this weekend on a Sunday, which is a little bit different to everybody else. It's a big game, and we're really, really leaning into the community rowing in behind us to make this a fortress and get the outcomes we need. The men's play first at 2:05 on Sunday, and the women follow up in just after 4:30. So it's a double header. It'd be great to get everybody behind the teams, and we've put some offers in place to help that. You've also got free tickets, I believe, giveaway for all registered Rugby WA juniors. Yeah, so every registered WA junior gets 2 tickets under this deal. So would be great to get everybody in, get it followed behind it, and get in behind a WA team.
What sort of crowd would you like to see there this weekend, Niamh?
Oh, no, north of 10,000 if we can, but more if there's more willing.
Good luck to it. I think there's a lot of optimism about the Western Force this year, and a feeling that maybe that the progress that they've made in the early season can be sustainable. That word again. Thanks for joining us on the show, and we look forward to following the Force's progress as the season progresses.
Thanks for having me.
Niamh O'Connor, she is the Western Force CEO. She comes to us this morning thanks to MEGT. You can build a skilled team and grow your business with Australia's apprenticeship experts. Visit meg.com.au. We'll be back with more after the break.